3. Ask like a child. Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew chapter 18, verse 3. What is Jesus trying to tell his listeners here? Clearly, he wants us to understand that not only does God love us as a father loves his child, he also wants us to become like a child, because children are innocent and trust with a pure, uncorrupted heart. Ask free of cynicism. The beautiful thing about a child is that he or she hasn't lived enough to be influenced by the concerns of the world, a far cry from the cynicism that develops within most adults. Unfortunately, the older we get, the more emotional and mental hurdles we allow to get between us and our destiny. We allow these hurdles to knock us down or stop us in our tracks, giving up on the rewards that await us if we keep moving forward across our destiny bridge. If we can become more like a child and trust with childlike abandon in all things good, it frees our hearts and allows us to become more of a positive magnet for all the things we desire. The qualities of a child. A child is humble. A child is pure. A child is innocent. A child trusts purely. A child believes with simplicity. A child is free of prejudice. A child is light-hearted and joyful. A child marvels at the little things. A child has the faith that he or she will be taken care of. A child notices the world's splendor. A child feels deserving of God's love. Because of their innocence and purity of heart, children have no problem asking. They trust at such an uncorrupted level that they believe it is the pleasure and duty of their parent to take care of their needs and to love and cherish them. We can learn so much from the faith of children as we approach life knowing that God loves us like a devoted parent and wants all good things for us. Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Matthew chapter 19, verse 14. What a beautiful thing Jesus said when he declared the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. He is telling us that as we live with the same simple faith and trust in our hearts as children, the kingdom of heaven is ours. We're not talking about some faraway place. We're talking about your life right here, right now. We can all probably relate to the feeling that life sometimes feels like heaven and sometimes like hell. We all have the ability to create heaven on earth with new levels of awareness. Challenge yourself to have childlike faith and to know that all good things are there for you, if you ask and believe you are worthy of the abundance of the universe. Sylvia Alice Earle, DSc, is a world-renowned American marine biologist, explorer, author, and lecturer. She has been a National Geographic Explorer in residence since 1998. At age 83, she is still diving all over the world and leading the charge to clean up our beautiful oceans, which are being polluted by plastics and chemicals as our planet's population and industrialization increase. We have spent wonderful times with Sylvia, conversing at various events, and can vouch for the fact that she is as energetic and enthusiastic about life as any 30-year-old. Within the same vein of wonder and innocence Jesus referred to, Sylvia also believes you need to become like a child to become a great explorer or scientist. The best scientists and explorers have the attributes of kids. They ask questions and have a sense of wonder. They have curiosity. Who, what, where, why, when, and how. They never stop asking questions, and I never stop asking questions, just like a 5-year-old. Sylvia Earle. Sylvia's prize-winning TED Talk urged people to help clean the oceans. I wish you would use all means at your disposal, films, expeditions, the web, new submarines, to create a campaign to ignite public support for a global network of marine protected areas. Hope spots large enough to save and restore the blue heart of the planet. With TED's support, she launched Mission Blue, which aims to establish marine protected areas, or hope spots, around the globe. Mission Blue's vision is to achieve 30% protection of the ocean by 2030. Over 200 organizations have supported them in this mission to date. These supporters range from large global companies to small bespoke research teams. Sylvia is an absolute marvel and is making magnificent, positive change for the world because of the childlike hope, wonder, and idealism she has embodied her entire life. True wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and the world around us. Socrates. My brilliant lifetime friend. Byron Tucker and I, Mark, met as young undergraduate students, among the few selected to be student ambassadors to India, considered a less developed country. When we first met in Putney, Vermont, to train for the Experiment, an international living assignment, I was a bit put off by Byron's Southern aristocratic demeanor and his big Ivy League status from Amherst College. He talked about how in high school he rode his favorite Tennessee walking horses. As a kid from a blue-collar family, the only thing I rode to high school was my little Suzuki motorcycle, which I bought used from a friend. But that changed when we got to India, and he needed my help. Byron unfortunately got into a yoga posture, asana, that injured his knee. The local medical doctors could not fix his injury quickly. I felt compassion for him, so I went into the black market and bought him a pair of crutches. We both tower over 6 feet, so I used my size to get the right size crutches. From that point on, we became friends. Ultimately, after the Experiment and International Living homestay was over, we independently decided, against our signed agreements and the conventions of our ambassadorial status, to travel independently throughout India. Such travel around India was pretty much unheard of in the late 60s. We went from Chikmagalur, Mysore State, to Bangalore, to Madras, to Calcutta, to Kashmir, to New Delhi, and on to a university stay in Bombay, where we rejoined the group. Every minute was thrilling. We were two strange white giants in a strange land that was extraordinarily multidimensional, complete with 325 different dialects and 18 full languages, with their own alphabets and literatures. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience worthy of penning a Hemingway-like story. It cemented a friendship that has lasted a lifetime. Byron, when not doing business on Wall Street, is an accomplished poet and voracious reader. Each of his 6 homes overflows with libraries that would make most librarians envious. Byron is one of the wisest men I have ever met. He has over a 90% comprehension of all of his various and sundry inputs, whether people, places, things, business, academics, spiritual studies, history, or travel. We and our wives love hanging out and traveling together. Last year we traveled together to Mallorca, Portugal, and Spain, and have more exciting, life-enriching trips planned in the future. At dinner one night I asked him, "Who is the best question asker ever?" Smilingly, he spontaneously answered, "Why, I am." He proceeded to enrich my evening with his reflections and wisdom on life, questions and answers. Questions to understand belief systems. Byron Tucker's story. Frankly, I don't know anybody who has asked as many hard questions as I have. I used to drive my parents, sister, teachers, and strangers crazy as a kid, asking why and needing real explanations. My parents were occasionally impatient, but they responded as best they could. My father was well-read, with an extraordinary vocabulary. He traveled solving the interface problems for AT&T and local telephone operating companies, and my mother was a nurse and a good businesswoman and manager. When I was 7 or 8, I asked my decade-older sister, who brought home some graph paper, what the lines were for. "Nothing," she answered. "You should have said they have no specific meaning until you assign meaning to them. They help you understand spatial relationships and value make them visual and quantifiable." Even at that age, nothing seemed like a ridiculous and unacceptable answer to my question. I have a profound curiosity that started with my early questioning of my parents. I read a psychological study 30 years ago that said that children in homes full of books tend to become good readers and motivated to curiosity and higher studies. My dad was a voracious reader, as was my aunt. Both were positive influences on me. Reading has been a hobby and a passion to me for as long as I can remember. Reading makes you more aware and available and deeper as a person. I can talk to anyone, anywhere in the world, because I am well read and know a little something about almost everything. We each perceive the world through the filters of our own lives and experiences. I wanted to know and understand everything and come to an unmitigated view of reality and be able to discuss it. I believe we each need to define ourselves and not be constrained by some parents, teachers, or other person's point of view of what we call reality. So, I launched myself into a lifelong self-educational pursuit using the questioning to be able to understand all belief systems. My initial serious questioning was of religious beliefs. For example, I was sitting in church one Sunday as an 8-year-old, and I had my first peak experience, essentially a mini-mystical experience of expanded connectedness. It was not because of the church or the pastor, it just happened. I think many, if not all, people have such experiences, but are afraid to talk about them because they are concerned others will think they are crazy or not living in reality, or fear they will get shut down for talking about such experiences. My experience was beyond words. I was spiritually overcome in a new opening, impossible to fully articulate. My mother did not know what to do with me, so at the end of the church service, she asked the minister to pray for and over me. The praying was nice, but I was in an awareness beyond the minister's understanding. As I have traveled through these portals occasionally and often unexpectedly, I have invested much of my life thinking about them, reading and exploring esoteric literature and practices, and studying with a master's seeking entrainment. Entrainment actually transcends normal human consciousness and takes us to alternative perceptions, doorways into greater understanding. Entrainment is the subtle, harmonizing vibrations that one telepathically receives from a master teacher or greater awareness. Many master-disciple relationships rely on this as a method of training and transmission of insight. We could say that Christ clearly experienced entrainment and entrained his disciples since they were able to do many of the things he could. My parents wanted me to pursue a higher education. I was accepted at great schools like Vanderbilt University, University of Tennessee, and University of Virginia. But the South in the 60s was constraining in its point of view and had what I thought of as limited thinking. I knew there was more in the world. Fortunately, right at that time, a girlfriend asked me to visit her at Smith College. She had me stay nearby at an Amherst College fraternity. Amherst really spoke to me. I loved the school, the professors, the students, and the geography. It was mind-opening in every good way. I decided to apply. On my next visit to my girlfriend, I went in for an interview. When I sat down to be interviewed, I was on. I was self-clear, extraordinarily articulate, and in the moment. To the depth of me, I could really hear and answer what the dean was asking. I crafted my answers to his real questions as opposed to the superficial appearances. Being super present and in the zone really worked. I was admitted. Ultimately, going to Amherst opened up a world for me of connections, ideas, and yet more questions. Years later, before I graduated, the same dean showed me his interview notes. I learned then that interview was the key to my admission. From there, I was chosen to go to India to participate in experiment in international living. I always had a taste for the bigger world. In the 50s, my father drove us all over the country. I loved it. There were no jet airplanes for long-distance travel until 1959. Dad was knowledgeable about much of the world, and a lot of our dialogues let me know what was out there to experience. Later, after finishing graduate school at the University of Chicago with an MBA, I began working on Wall Street in investment banking and later at Goldman Sachs in the commodity department. But after a few years, because of my questioning, I decided to pursue my own path and interests rather than the path of an investment banker. I am into self-questioning. I ask myself, what's the highest and best use of my life, talents and gifts, and my happiness? It was an internal struggle to leave, and then, once I left, I could not look back. I went on to create my own business in various areas and engage in active trading, which I still do to this day. Questioning is an iterative process that requires repeated pursuit. I have learned that the whole universe conspires to give us the answers we need. If we listen quietly in meditation and surrender our ego, we will hear answers curated just for us. Inside my mind and spirit, I have come to realize profound inner guidance that is true and clear. It takes quiet patience and intuitional listening to hear those subtle whispers of guidance. Higher knowing or awareness does not shout. We must ask and then patiently listen with faith. My view on questions is that you can give somebody 50 answers, and they will go over them like water on a raincoat. But if they ask one question, they become open to receiving insights and understanding. Questions are, therefore, far more important than a slew of solutions. Questions asked lead us onward. Our biggest questioning challenge is to ask how we individualize the right questions to bring out wisdom in the right answers. With faith in a supportive universe, impersonal but not indifferent, we will ultimately get exactly what we need, though perhaps not what we think we want. Quite recently, a man who was in real pain and suffering came to talk to me. His question caused a profound answer to come through me. The answer inspired him to become a different human being because he listened to insights that came, through me, for him. I have spent my whole life cultivating real insight and seeking to wake up. The word Buddha means awakened. This leads to service to others when it is needed and asked for. It is important not to try to help unless it is requested, for if we do, it can lead to undesirable consequences. Life is like a piece of cloth, one whole that is all connected. I, like everyone else, am just one of the expressors of consciousness in the magnificent expression of awareness. Awareness permeates all and everything. It is all and everything. It is not specific to me or any one individual. We are not containers of awareness. We are its instruments. As awareness seeks to experience itself, we provide the uplink, the data of experience in this dimension. But since we are awareness also, we have access to the knowing and guidance that reside there, coming to us in subtle, quiet expressions. Though occasionally we do need to be hit on the head both physically and symbolically, often in the form of a crisis or serious illness. The barrier is the self-imposed limitations of the ego, which thinks it has godlike powers and wants control without realizing its inherent limits and self-referential perspective. Thus, suffering comes into the world. When we accept our role as connected beings, we move into harmony with life, forgiving all completely and loving without an object. The first step in asking that seems self-evident is asking yourself, what do I really want? When you figure that out, pose your next question and your next, such as, how do I do that? How do I make it happen? Each question reveals the following questions, and in this way, like a path to your destiny and fulfillment, your questions become self-revealing as to the next step in that path. Ask gold nuggets. Can you ask with the innocence and purity of a child, trusting you will be answered? Do you feel deserving of every gift, like a child? Like a child, never stop asking who, what, where, why, when, and how. You can only understand belief systems by questioning everything. Life has endless gifts to offer if you have profound curiosity. Asking questions with faith will ultimately get you exactly what you need.